Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Hey, any youngers, welcome back to another episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. It's me, your host, Jen Glantz. I am still feeling full from Thanksgiving. I had a combination of the apple pie, the pumpkin pie, and the pecan pie. And I gotta tell you, I don't regret my pies. I really don't. But you know what I do regret? A lot of the mistakes I made in 2019. I don't know if this has happened with you yet, but if it hasn't, buckle down, get ready, because we are about to enter the final month of 2019, which is usually the time when the water cooler talk goes from, oh my God, the weather is so cold, to what's your New Year's resolutions? And if you're like me, that kind of question makes my eyes bulge and my heart race, and that's truly because I am the worst at New Year's resolutions. For example, a couple months ago, I was cleaning out some stuff in my fiance Adam's parents' house in New Jersey. That's where we kept a lot of stuff when we traveled for the couple of years. And when I was going through stuff, I found a journal that I had written in December of 2018. And in this journal, I listed a bunch of my New Year's resolutions. I think I wrote down like 7 things. Everything from publish a fiction book to do a TED Talk. And this was like August of this year. I look at that list and I'm like, holy shit, Jen, you have accomplished none of this. Not one thing. Like, not one thing on that resolution list did I do or even like get close to doing. So I felt really guilty coming into this new month of December, because how can I set new resolutions or fake it till I make it during that conversation if I haven't even attempted to get close to my goals from 2019, which leads me to this episode today. Before we can goal set for 2020, my friends, we have to part ways with our mistakes from 2019. A couple of weeks ago, I hosted a meetup in New York City, and the meetup happened to be on one of the coldest nights of the winter so far in New York City, and I was sitting there waiting for the meetup to start. I had hot pizza, and I thought nobody's going to come to this, and I don't blame them because it's so freaking cold, but we ended up having around 20 people come, and a huge part of the meetup was about goal setting and saying goodbye to our mistakes from 2019, and it was a very powerful activity that we did, and I really want to share it with you. So I want to walk you through the activity on this episode, but I also want you to press the pause button, because before you do this activity, you got to get the worksheet to do it with. So the worksheet is available for you for free. Come on, I would never charge you for this stuff. You can find it at jenglantz.com/goals, and that's written in the show notes. So if you just look at your phone right now, the URL is right there, and you will find the worksheet to download and print so that you can do the exercise in this podcast. So once you have the worksheet, here's what I want you to do. The very first part of the worksheet is all about how do we admit some of the things that we did not mean to do in 2019, or things that didn't go our way, or just things we messed up on. We have to first go through the process of admitting those things. So on the worksheet, you're going to see a long laundry list of potential mistakes you could have made. And I'm going to read each of these mistakes out loud to you. So if you're on the go, you're traveling to work, you can't print the worksheet, maybe in your head, when I say these mistakes out loud and you've made them, all I want you to do is some type of body movement to admit the mistake publicly. Now, hopefully you have your headphones in, or you're listening to this privately, or maybe you're listening to this with somebody else, and maybe you decide right now, I'm going to be brave and admit these mistakes out loud to them. But if you're listening solo, all I want you to do is just raise a finger, raise a hand, tap your toes, just something to admit publicly that you've made these mistakes. And if you have the worksheet in front of you, just check them off as I read them out loud right now. Here's my list. 1, you set a goal and didn't finish it. 2, you felt like an imposter. 3, someone you love doubted you. 4, you were worried about money. 5, you sat alone and cried. 6, you weren't honest with yourself. 7, you lied to other people. 8, you felt alone in your problems. 9, you lost focus. 10, you self-sabotaged. 11, you really doubt your 2020 path. 12, you lost out on a big opportunity. 13, you got laid off, maybe fired. 14, you let somebody else down. 15, you owe somebody a sorry. And 16, you didn't take that vacation. Now, I'll be completely honest with you. I made this list, which means I have made all of these mistakes, okay? So if you checked off all of them or you raised your hand for all of them, me too. Me freaking too, okay? So don't feel alone and don't feel so worried about them. Hopefully, by doing this, you feel a bit of a purge of honesty toward these mistakes. These mistakes do not define who you are. They define what happened to you and what you might have done that you didn't even mean to do. Mistakes don't define you. They define what happened during a period of time. And I want you to remember that because you are so much bigger and better than everything on this list. Now, admitting it to yourself is step number 1, but explaining it to yourself is step number 2. So as you go back through this list, and if you don't have the worksheet in front of you, wait till you do. Every single one you checked off, I want you to write the word but next to that phrase and fill in something after it that makes you realize you are so much taller and bigger and better than the mistakes on this paper. For example, maybe you felt like an imposter, but you know you have the confidence to get through that situation the next time. Maybe you lied to other people, but you're working on yourself and your confidence and your vulnerability. Maybe you sat alone and cried, but you now know there are other people who want you to call them when you need somebody to open up to. Take time with this list because the only way to move forward, my friends, and to set these big goals for 2020 is to really examine what happened, why it happened, and then remind ourselves that we are so much bigger than these tiny little things. They don't define us. Now, on the bottom of the worksheet, and you can do this in your head, I want you to think about your goals for 2020. So if you close your eyes right now and you think about it, okay, by the end of 2020, we're talking December 31st, 2020, probably it's cold outside, you're somewhere watching the ball drop or paying attention to the clock. Who do you want to be? And where do you want to be? Who do you want to be with? What do you want your accomplishments to be? What do you want to say you survived, you fought through, you achieved, you worked on, you worked toward, you did? And when you open your eyes, I just want you to write them down. And if you're somewhere, I want you to say them out loud. And as you brainstorm these goals and you write down 2 or 3 of them, what I want you to think about is, what is the next actionable step you can take to make those goals happen? And maybe your goal is, okay, I want to start a side hustle. So the next actionable goal could be to interview some people who have a similar side hustle to find out how they got started, or read a couple books, take some classes, figure out how to really put that idea into motion. So step 1 with your goal setting is brainstorm. Just brainstorm. Where do you want to be at the end of 2020? And then 2, what are an actionable step you can take now and in January to catapult that into action? But then 3, what I want you to do is, once you have your list of 3 or 4 goals, I want you to, out loud, say that you've already accomplished them. And I want you to say it again and again and again. My name is Jen Glantz and I published a fiction book. My name is Jen Glantz and I published a fiction book. Again and again and again until you lose your voice. Why? Because if you can't admit out loud, even if it's to nobody or it's to strangers or it's to the person you love dearly, what your goals are, they will never happen. Goals don't belong in your head. They belong in motion, in movement, in statement, in energy, and we have to squeeze them out of us. So I ask you to find the courage to say them out loud right now, wherever you are. And then I want you to call someone today or speak to someone today and admit these goals to them. By the way, it can be a stranger. By the way, it could be me. But if you don't admit them, how can they come true? So I hope that when you do this experiment, this worksheet, you start to see that whatever happened or didn't happen this year is literally history. It's done. And you're better than that, okay? We all make mistakes, and you will make mistakes next year. You will look at the same list and say, okay, I didn't self-sabotage this year, but I did something else, and that is also okay. We are humans. We're meant to make mistakes. We're meant to be a mess. We are meant to mess up, but we're also meant to live out our goals. And that's why the bottom half asks you to define them, make steps toward them, and most of all, my dear friend, admit them out loud. I am cheering you on, and if you want to send me your goals, you want me to be the person you admit them to, send me an email, jenglantz@gmail.com, DM me on the IG @jenglantz, or come hang out with us in the secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group. There are 1,400 people in that group ready to cheer you on, ready to help you out, ready to help you get that dream job, or just get past those fears, or just feel less alone. And one more thing, if you like this show, rate us, review us on iTunes or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. It truly helps the show stay in motion, and this show is all for you. It's a little bit for me too. It helps me figure out how to get through these big hurdles in life, like saying goodbye to my own 2019 mistakes and setting some really massive goals for 2020. Know that I am cheering you on. Until next time, all my love. Hey you! Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.